Hi, I'm Lauren, your host for the KidsMin Collective podcast, and today we are going to be talking about what does it take to thrive and flourish in kids ministry. So this is actually going to be a two-part episode. The first one, we're going to talk about just the impactful kids ministry steps that you can take to have a thriving and flourishing ministry, and then we'll talk about in the second episode the 5 Ps that you're going to need to use to just the lenses that you're going to want to think through in order to determine and take steps towards a thriving and flourishing ministry. So, just want to encourage you and equip you as ministry leaders just with some practical insights, some ways to help you evaluate, to grow, and sustain a flourishing ministry. So, one of the things that we should start with is just understanding what does it look like to be a thriving and flourishing kids ministry. In the KidsMin context, what is that? It is not just surviving or maintaining, but it's actually growing, sustaining joy, bearing fruit. It doesn't mean to be perfect, or as I like to say, a Pinterest worthy endeavor, but it means to be a healthy and life-giving, Christ-centered ministry for kids, families, and volunteers. Many leaders, and I know how this is, are running on empty, trying to do too much with too little. And so this episode is just going to be a call to step back and to just build strategically, and to think about some impactful kids ministry steps you can take to make sure that your ministry is thriving and flourishing and that you're in a healthy place. And so the first step we're going to talk about, these are kind of the foundational things to move forward from just simply surviving to thriving. So the first thing we want to talk about is to establish a strong foundation. This is going to be your step one. You want to ask, what's your why? What values and mission guide your decisions? So those are kind of foundational pieces of how and why you do ministry. And that's going to be important as you're thinking through this lens of how to do kids ministry well and to flourish in that. So your vision and your values should really be shaping your programming, your volunteer culture, the communication you have, how you relate to families, all of that. And so flourishing ministries are actually aligned ministries. So be considering, what is your why? What are your values? What's your mission? What's your vision? What's guiding your decisions? So that's the first place we want to start, is to establish that strong foundation, to know how and why you're making decisions. In business, they always say that you need to figure out what your mission and vision is, and anything else that comes up as an opportunity might be a good opportunity, might be really fun, might be a great idea, but is that aligned with your mission and vision? And if the answer is no, don't do it. I know that we struggle with this mindset as Christians, as ministry leaders. I get it. It's really hard. Sometimes we want to say yes because it's a good thing. And don't get me wrong. Yes, it can definitely be a good thing, but sometimes we say yes to good things and we say no in turn to the best thing. And so be careful what your yeses are and be careful what your nos are. So we want to be making sure that every decision we make is aligned on that strong foundation of your mission and your vision. And so if you don't have those in place, definitely that's some place that you need to start. What is your goal? What are you working towards? How are you trying to reach families and reach kids in the kids ministry? So that's the first place to start, is a strong foundation. We will talk through that more as we talk through the 5 Ps in the next episode. So stay tuned for that. But just wanted to start with that foundational piece. The second thing you're going to want to do is to evaluate what is working in your ministry and what is not working. Sometimes this is hard. If you're like me, I don't know if you do Enneagram. I'm an Enneagram 1, which is a perfectionist. So I have no problem giving you a list of the things that are not working. And so I all day long can be like, yep, need to improve that. Yes, need to do this better. Yes, could do this better. Oops, I didn't do that thing. Ooh, this wasn't perfect. Like I always say, it's not Pinterest worthy, and I want it to be that, right? So I can come up all day long with the things that are wrong. But on the flip side, some people might have a hard time admitting this isn't really going very well. They want to tell you all day long the things that are going super well. There's definitely a time and place for both, right? So we need to evaluate both of those things, and that is a critical part of evaluating your ministry as a whole. So you got to look at what is working, what is not working. You can't fix the things that you're not assessing. So if you haven't looked at it to say, these things are huge hits. They are amazing. Kids love them. Families love them. We see children learning the gospel through this. Then if you haven't evaluated that, you might not know to keep those things. But on the flip side, you also need to think about, okay, this thing really isn't aligned with what our mission and vision is, and it doesn't actually achieve this. One great example of this, I was on staff for almost 10 years at a church, a pretty big church, and we lived in a large like group of cities that basically people from all over those cities would come into this one space to do church, to whatever. They were all kind of coming together and could come from any of those cities. And so the church that I was on staff at, I asked the question one time. I was like, why do we not do VBS? Every other church in the area does it. And it turned out that they did do VBS long before I was on staff at the church. And right, like that's a good thing, doing VBS, offering summer programming. Well, it turned out that by the time they recruited enough volunteer leaders to come and run VBS, all of their volunteer leaders had their kids in the VBS program, and then there was zero outreach. So their goal of this VBS was to do outreach with the community and invite other people who were not part of our church to come in and experience Jesus, to learn about him, to experience the church, and to invite them to come to church. And by the time they had recruited all of the volunteers, they didn't have room to invite anybody from the community. So at the end of the day, something that was good, doing VBS, having our kids from our church come in and do VBS and learn about him during the week, great. Like those are good things. But at the end of the day, the mission and the vision was to disciple and to reach out to others outside of our immediate church family, to invite them in. And we missed the mark on that. We couldn't do that because the programming just simply didn't work out. So we had to choose to say no to something. And instead, we reallocated those finances to do something different. Instead of putting on summer programming and hosting VBS, we used those finances to do other things. It freed up our volunteer leaders to do other things. It didn't burn them out in the middle of the summer months while they were trying to, do vacations and all those things as well. So it just changed the dynamic of what we were doing. It's not that saying yes to VBS or no to VBS was a right or wrong answer, black and white. It simply was not working for the context of what we were doing. So assess the things, think through them, what is working, what's not, what is meeting your goals, and again, what lines up with your mission and your vision. So be honest and kind as you're evaluating. Don't evaluate these things to criticize, but do them to grow. This is a great space if you have some key and note here that I'm saying key volunteers and or key parents or families. This is a great space to invite them in to just have a quick chat. Say, I would love to have coffee with you, or, get 5 volunteers together in the same room and have coffee with all of them, and just say, I want to pick your brain. I want to understand, what do you think about this? Do you think that there's areas that we can grow, we can improve? Are there things that are working super well? It is great to get feedback and perspective from teachers who are in classrooms. So think about maybe every position or volunteer role you have? Do you have some kind of a floater or a coordinator who kind of knows what your job is? They would be great resources to ask. If you have key teachers who are in the classrooms teaching consistently, often as directors, we're probably not in those roles, right? Like most of the time, I was not in a classroom as a teacher. So there were things happening in the classroom that I didn't know. And I was like, I'm not teaching this curriculum every week. And if you think that this isn't working, I want to know that, right? So just be asking those key leaders, and then key families, are there certain families in your ministry that are going to be able to tell you, hey, these things that you're singing a song that has the Bible verse in it, and my kid comes home singing the Bible verse every week. Don't stop doing that. Or I don't know, my kid can't ever recite the Bible story. Is there some way that you can elaborate on that or reinforce that in the class? So those are great types of questions to ask, that allow you the opportunity to hear feedback from people in different positions than you, right? And so just be thinking who those key people might be. And I would keep some kind of, I guess, key metrics maybe, that are really going to matter. So engagement level of the children and the volunteers, what spiritual growth is happening, what is the leader sustainability? That's a great question, as you can start asking those of your volunteers. And then what does parent partnership look like? So from a teacher perspective, what does that look like? What are the things that they wish you were equipping them with so they could give to parents? Or on a parent side of things, what are the things that parents wish that they were getting from the church to equip them for discipleship? So using those as the metrics, and using those key people to start evaluating that, again, not to criticize, but to grow in those areas. So that's the whole point of figuring out, kind of where we're at and establishing a little bit of, where are the spaces that we have room to grow and where are the spaces that we keep doing what we're doing, and so we want to create ministries that are thriving and flourishing, not just surviving. And so sometimes it's helpful to get a perspective from somebody, who is doing a lot of that, the work, right, of teaching and being in that. You're doing different work than teachers are doing. Also consider, maybe if you have a large group leader, who those people are and kind of what that space looks like for them. That's another place to be a good place of evaluation to grow, as well, and key people to bring in. So, along with those first two steps, the third step is going to be to identify your priorities. So, what are the non-negotiables of your ministry? Those should directly align with your mission and vision, where you're headed, what you do. That is going to be the things that you absolutely determine whether you say yes or no to something. And then also, what you're doing strategic, or is it just inherited? This is a big one to think about. A lot of people, I talk to people all the time who they're like, yep, I just started in this role. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm, a fresh KidsMin leader. The person before me had been here for 20 years. That's great. 20 years of a seasoned leader is awesome. And also 20 years of doing things one way might not be what makes sense right now. And that's okay. There's no shame, no judgment in that. But it might be something that you've just inherited from somebody else. And so consider, are the things that you're doing, whether or not they are strategic, or you're just doing them simply because somebody else did them. So clarity is also going to create energy for you. And so when you are extremely clear on what your yeses are and what your nos are, what your mission is, what your vision is, it gives you the opportunity to say yes to the things that matter and no to the things that don't matter and don't move you forward in your vision and your mission. But also they allow you to prioritize what is aligning with what you're trying to do, and gives you the ability to just drop the rest. There's some freedom in that, right? To be able to say, okay, I know exactly what I'm moving towards, so I get to say no to the rest of the things. And you can say no with confidence in a way that you can't if you're unsure and it's unclear, what your non-negotiables in your mission and your vision are. Step 4, you're going to want to make a plan and keep it simple. Simple doesn't necessarily mean small. It doesn't necessarily mean huge either. But you need to have a simple plan that is clear, that is consistent with your mission and vision and aligns with those things, has your non-negotiables, but also is sustainable. I've talked about this before. You have to consider what pace you can go as a KidsMin leader. You cannot work 100 hours in a week. You just cannot do it. Sometimes we try to bite off more than we can chew, and we try to do things that are worth 100 hours in a week, and we just simply cannot do it. You will burn out so fast if you do that. So how do you create a clear, a consistent, and a sustainable plan that is simple but meets the needs of your mission and your vision? Part of that means that you're going to want to build a rhythm into your consistent year, and also months, and also weeks, right? So you're going to want to think about planning seasons. When are you going to plan for the next year? That is a huge piece of just sitting down and taking the time and energy to think through. That is super, super critical. Training windows. When are you going to be training volunteers? How do you maximize that? Checking in on your plan, thinking through that, asking volunteers for feedback, asking parents for feedback. So those types of check-ins are going to be really helpful to think about when you're building that into your rhythms. And so just be considering what that looks like. How and when are you planning? How are you going to set aside time for that? And then involve your team, whether you have a staff team that you guys can do planning together, or you can invite key leaders or key people from your ministry into that planning. And so thriving ministries are not built alone. And also, just remember, we were built for community. God designed us to live in community with other believers, and that is the beauty of the church. And so, allow other people to step into that space and just be part of the planning process with you. I think you will be surprised at some of the ideas and the things that come out of conversations with key people from your ministry that allow you to brainstorm new and great opportunities that maybe you would have never thought of. I know I tend to think very logically and structurally and want to create systems, but that tends to mean that I think in a box, and I know that about myself. One of my best ministry partners, she is a dreamer. She thinks, and she's a question asker, and I love just planning with her, dreaming with her, coming up with ideas and thoughts. And so we make a great team, and we did ministry together for years. And then we actually both, when we stepped out of ministry, we ended up both of us launching our own businesses, and now we get to do those things together. We get to dream about those things. I still call her. I talked to her this week and said, hey, just curious, want to know, what do you think about this? And what are your thoughts on this? And so she helped me with some ideas. I helped her kind of think through some prioritizing certain things in her business. And so have people like that think differently than you, and invite them into those planning spaces. That's very helpful to get outside of your little box and kind of what you know, but to give you some opportunities and ideas to do something different. And also people who might call out the things that are hard to hear. So obviously be wise about who you pick to put into that space, but that's super helpful to have those types of people as part of your planning process. So be thinking and praying about who those key people are, who you can ask that are volunteer leaders, who you can ask that are parents or families, and invite them into that. The last step you're going to want to think about is revisiting, refreshing, and repeating. So flourishing is not a one and done type thing. It is going to be a process, right? It's never a finish line. You're not ever going to cross over this line and say, great, I'm flourishing, and that's that. It is going to be an ever evolving process, and things look different all the time and in different seasons. So set a rhythm for your reflection and for resetting. This can be quarterly, this can be seasonally. Again, invite feedback from leaders, from families. If you have older kids, you can invite feedback from the kids, just to figure out, how do I need to revisit the things that we're doing? How do I refresh the things we're doing if they need that? and then repeat the process, right? So again, this can go back to what we initially talked about is just identifying those non-negotiables, evaluating the things that work and they don't work. Like these are all steps that you can revisit every time and just process through that. And so I just encourage you. I know that there's a lot of things that you are trying to juggle at one time. You're scheduling Sunday mornings, you're trying to figure out programming, you're trying to train teachers, you're trying to equip leaders and make sure that you're discipling them, you're trying to wrangle kids on a Sunday and figure out how to do that, you're trying to teach people how to love kids, discipline kids, figure out all the different pieces of that, right? There's a lot of hats we wear as KidsMin leaders. And so I just want to encourage you that having a thriving and flourishing kids ministry is possible. You can do it. It is going to take some effort and it is going to take some time and some thought and definitely a lot of prayer. But it is possible to do that. So stay tuned for part 2 of this podcast, the 5 Ps that we're going to walk through on how you can have a thriving and flourishing kids ministry. And so I hope you have a great day, a great week. If you have questions or comments, drop them in the comment section below. I would love to chat with you. Feel free to reach out to me at lauren@ozarkministryconsulting.com. I would love to answer your questions, help equip you, or check out the website ozarkministryconsulting.com for other resources, trainings, webinars, things like that that are upcoming. So would love to partner with you and help serve you in your kids ministry and to help your ministry thrive and flourish. Have a great week. Thanks for joining me today on the KidsMin Collective podcast, where we're all about nurturing leaders and impacting generations. Before you go, I want to invite you to take the next step in growing your ministry with confidence. I've created a free KidsMin Leader Assessment designed just for leaders like you. It walks you through the 5 key areas: purpose, people, programming, physical space, and procedures, helping you celebrate what's going well and uncover where there's room to grow. Whether you're a brand new leader or you've been leading for years, this tool will give you a clear picture of where your ministry stands and where it could go with a little strategy and support. Head over to ozarkministryconsulting.com to get started. You'll find the assessment right on the homepage, quick, simple, and packed with insight. And if this episode encouraged you, share it with a fellow leader or leave a review. We are better when we grow together. Until next time, keep leading well, keep loving big, and remember, your ministry matters.